In this lecture, we're bringing our sprite sheets into our project and we're slicing them up so we have individual assets that we can be using as tiles, and we're going to be slicing them up using the Sprite editor. Let's start by creating a new project. So from within Unity Hub, click on New, and then make sure you've selected on 2D. Name your project whatever you want. I'll be naming mine Tilevania. I've already created mine, ready to go for this lecture, so that's why it's saying path already exists. Save it where you want to save it, and then click the Create button. As I said, I've already created mine, so go ahead and create yours. That will bring you to this screen. While yours is creating and getting started, what you might want to do against this lecture is to grab the assets that I've provided for you that you can download. If you've already got your own assets, you don't need to do this, but I've given this to you as a zip file. Unzip the zip file and have all these assets ready if you're going to use these assets. When you are ready to go, I'm going to, in my new project that should have opened up by now for you, hopefully it has, I'm going to highlight all of these assets and then drag them into my project, into Unity. That should bring them all in. Yep, nice and neatly. Let's do a little bit of structuring here. So I'll right click anywhere in here, create a folder, and we'll name this Sprites. And then let's grab all these things we just brought in, and then throw them in there. Now the assets that I'm using come from the Super Platformer Assets asset pack on the Unity Asset Store. Foxfin, the wonderful creators of this asset pack, have said that yes, you and I can use a limited subset of these in our student project to play around with, but if you want to use these in a commercial project, in other words, if you want to publish your game or sell your game or get your game out there, then you need to come along and buy this asset pack. Great assets. I've gone and modified them a little bit, so I've gone and colorized them. I've changed the sprite sheets around a little bit, so if you do go and buy that asset pack, things will look a little bit different. Just bear that in mind. So we've got a couple of sprite sheets in here, and these are all these tiles presented on one sprite sheet. If I was to drag this into the game and go blunk, there it is. It's not very useful, is it? We need to cut this up so I can say, just take this one tile and put it there, and this one tile and put it there. So there's a bit of a process I'll teach you now for cutting up your sprite sheets, but first of all, I want to get the size of these things correct, and I know from playing around with it that I want to have, if I click on my asset down here, I want to have my pixels per unit at 32. So I'm going to go and grab all of these. So the background, the coins, the enemy, the ladder, the ginger, that's the name of our player because he's got red hair, the spikes, and this thingy down the end, the exit. I'm going to change all these to 32 pixels per unit and then click apply. We've talked about this in other parts of the course. That means that for our graphic, our PNG that we bring into our project, we're saying we want 32 of the pixels from this image we've brought in to correspond to one Unity unit. And the Unity units you can see along here, this is one Unity unit, two Unity units, where our grid lines are showing our Unity units. So 32 pixels per unit is the size. It's going to look pretty good. If I just drag my character sheet in there, if I drag the character sheet in there, you can see that's roughly the size I want my character running around on the screen. Obviously, there's not going to be 50 of him, which is going to take one of those as he runs around, but that's a good way of saying, yeah, that's around the right size that we want. If I was to click on that and say back to the 100, then you'll see that it's way too little on the screen. It doesn't make sense. So back to 32. Now I want to get these things out of my scene because I just dragged them in there to show you what's going on. So I'm going to click on the hierarchy and delete. And now what we want to do is find one of our sprite sheets. I'm going to click on our SPA, Super Platformer Assets, Rock, Grass, Water. And now you'll see from within the inspector, there is a sprite mode. We want to change that from single to multiple. That says this is not one single sprite. This is multiple sprites contained within this area, contained within our PNG. And then click on the sprite editor button. I get a little bit of a warning. I've messed around with some things here, the pixels per unit, and I forgot to click apply, but it gives you a little warning, say, did you forget to click apply, Rick? You can click apply now, so thank you for that, Unity. And you can see here's our sprite sheet with our platformery tile things. Very cool, a little bit of water down the bottom. As I said before, I've rearranged the assets that I got from the asset pack provider. I've brightened it, so it's a little bit easier for you to see as I'm recording my video here. Now, up in the top left, we've got an option which says slice, and when I click on that, you can see we've got a few options: automatic, grid by cell size, grid by cell count. If I click on automatic, then what that says is, hey Unity, just go ahead and figure out where you think you should chop this up. And then click on slice, boom. You can see we've got a little white outline there. If I click on any of these, you can see that it's sliced it up exactly around where I wanted my asset to be. And also as I click through it, you can see that it changes the name of it, _7, _8, _9. So it's given each of these an individual name, and it's sliced them up. Now the last step in this is up in the top right. If I click on apply, then that goes ahead and does it. It makes this into separate images. What does that mean? Well, let's X out of our sprite editor, find our sprite sheet we're working on, open that up by clicking the little arrow thingy, and you can see now it's got all these individual sprites. It's chopped it up. If I was to grab one of these and drag it into the scene and drag another one into the scene, then these are now individual assets that we can use within Unity, all being pulled from our one singular sprite sheet. So that stays as a single asset, as a single sprite sheet. We've just given some logic to say how it's chopped up and how it's presented. So once again, I'm going to delete all those because I was just mucking around and showing you how that works. Okay, so that's for our rock assets. We're going to do a similar process for our background, but I'll get to that in a moment because what I want to show you is a slightly different way of doing things with our character. So click on the character, jump over to the inspector, change from sprite mode single to sprite mode multiple, click apply, don't forget that, then click on sprite editor. Now we can see with our sprite editor, if I was to go up to slice and click on automatic and then say slice, it will slice exactly around the pixels that it sees. It's like, okay, you've got pixels there. I'm going to hug the corner of these exactly, hug the corners. And that might seem like it makes sense, but if you see, we've got a little bit of a run and a little bit of a jump and a bit of a roll in here. And if you just look at this exactly, you can see that my character is at this level as I scroll along. You can see that it's gone up a little bit higher, up a little bit higher, whereas the slicing is still right around the character. So that means it's not going to translate the character up and down within this area. So if I want to retain this artist's good work of saying he's kind of jumping up in the air and then down, or when he does this roll that he's on a particular plane, then instead of doing this automatic technique, I'm going to jump up to slice and click on grid by cell size. And you can see we've got these red outlines that have been presented everywhere. Now, I've gone and played around with this before I started the lecture, so let me put it back to what the settings possibly were before we started off. It's probably like this, 64 by 64, 0 padding, and you can see that the big red lines which says this is where we're going to slice this up, it doesn't match up to our character at all. I'm going to make our pixel size 32 by 32, and then I also know, just because I know this and I've looked at it and I've measured it, I know that there's a padding between this. So the artist has created this saying, I'm going to make a block and then I'm going to give a little bit of space between it and block, a little bit of space, as we had for our other assets. You can see just a little down here, you can see there's a block and then a space and a block and a space on our rock assets we chopped up before. The same thing is taking place with our characters. So clicking on slice again, I'm going to add some padding of 6 and 6, and that means that we slice up our sprite and then a bit of a padding, slice it up, bit of padding, slice up, bit of a padding. Perfect. So that is now looking pretty good, except I keep clicking off it. When I click on slice now, it will slice things up and show our white outline. So you can see when he's doing his little rolly thing here, he's off the ground a little bit, which I think is what the artist wanted. And if he's doing this kind of jumping thing, he's off the ground. Once again, he's doing his little run. There's a bit of a bobble up in the air. His legs go up in the air, so his head's staying at a similar height, up and down a little bit. So anyway, that's the better way to slice it up when you know that the artist is working within a block, but moving the character up and down within the block. Once again, we hit apply, and X out of this, and you can see if I click on my character, open that up, you can see a whole bunch of, we've got our assets in here. Now, I've got another couple of things to do. We've got the enemy, got the coins, and got the background. I'm going to set this to you as a challenge. Slice up those sheets, slice them up so we have clean individual assets for background tiles, platforming tiles, the character animation, which I've done already, the enemy animation, which you've got access to, and anything else you might have cooked up when you went and grabbed assets or when you created your own assets. So there's your challenge. Pause the video, take that on, and I'll see you back here when you're done. Okay, I'm going to do this pretty quickly because we've already done it a couple of times. Click on the background and make sure it's at 32 pixels per unit. Yes, change it to multiple. Click on Sprite Editor, apply, because I forgot that again. Up to slice. I'm going to put this back to automatic and slice, and that's done it around perfectly. Excellent. Then click apply. That one should be all done, and looks like it's all done. Great. And then what we've got here, we've got the coins. Let's click on that, change it to multiple. Once again, click apply so I don't forget like I do every time. Click on Sprite Editor. Now, how are we going to do this? Well, let's see what happens if we do grid by cell size with the 32 and the 6. That looks perfect. Looks like these coins are right in the middle of it. You can see that it's rotating around. Great. So I'm going to click on slice and then click on apply again. That looks good. And then what else have we got? We've got our enemy facing to the right. Once again, change to multiple. Click on apply, Sprite Editor. I think this is going to be, if we click on splice, grid by cell size. That doesn't look like it's worked at all, does it? Let's see what happens here. We've got this offset. I didn't tell you about this before. Apologies for that. But maybe if we do an offset, that will move all of the boxes along to the right, because it looks like this wasn't cropped all the way on the left. So if we put it to 6, how does that look? Not quite there yet. If we put it to 10, Then on the lefty-righty, it looks like we're pretty good. That guy fits in, that fits in, but on the uppy-downy, not quite, so I'm going to put a little bit of padding as well. What happens if we make this fully 10? That's too far. And if we make it 6, you know what? We need a little bit less than that. I'll make it 4. Okay, so I hadn't mentioned that to you before. Apologies for that. But we do have a little bit of offset that we needed for this slicing up this character. If you figured it out yourself, well done, being a clever sausage. And if not, then we've done it now and we've sliced this up. Looks pretty good. I'm going to click on slice, click on apply, X out of that as well. And the ladder is sliced up already because it's one individual unit, and the spikes are sliced up already. So I believe we have done everything. Oh, and the exit is as it should be. So there we go. We've sliced up our sprite sheets. I will see you in the next lecture.